The Minnesota Vikings are 4-1, 3-0 in the division, and they hold sole first place in the NFC North. Pretty good place to be. Let's talk about how they got there on the Locked On Vikings podcast.
You are Locked On Vikings, your daily Minnesota Vikings podcast, part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
Welcome, everybody, to another episode of the Locked On Vikings podcast, part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day. As always, I'm your host, your pal, and the kid you copied off in math class. My name is Luke Braun. You can find me on Twitter at Luke Braun NFL. Show is on Twitter at Locked On Vikings. Thank you so much for making Locked On Vikings your first listen of the day. Thank you, everybody who listened last week, bearing with me as I had weird acoustics, weird mic things happen. I was traveling abroad, back home now. So we should be all back to normal. Today's episode of Locked On Vikings is presented by PrizePicks. It's daily fantasy made easy. Pick 2 to 5 players, and if they score more or less than their PrizePicks projection, you can win up to 10 times your money on your entry. First-time users can receive a 100% instant deposit match up to $100 with promo code LOCKEDON. That's PrizePicks.com. Promo code LOCKEDON. Vikings win. 29-22, they beat the Bears, go to 4-1, 3-0, get a win against everybody in the division, all at home. They've got a bunch of road division games later in the season, but they can at worst split all those series now. Great place to be, great positioning. The Packers lose in London as well, which was the only team that was actually in contention for the lead. The Vikings and Packers were tied, so now the Vikings hold sole first place in the NFC North. Amazing place to be. And yet, it does not feel that great because it was another pretty ugly win. Less ugly, I would say, than the last two. And I think as we kind of get more removed from the moment, the, oh my God, they almost blew it feeling is going to fade. And you're just going to think more about how much the Vikings dominated for the majority of this game. They come out 3 drives, 3 touchdowns. And what happened on those 3 drives, I'll talk about it in more depth in a sec, but they solved the Bears defense. I mean, the Bears came out with an exceedingly dumb game plan, and I think Kirk Cousins did this. Obviously, you give O'Connell some level of credit and execution around him and everything, some level of credit, but I think it was Kirk Cousins, which if you're watching on YouTube, it's why I'm wearing the Kirk Cousins jersey today. He earned it. It was a great Kirk Cousins day, outside of 1 interception that he more than made up for. But I think there was a little bit of a blood in the water thing with the way the Bears approached the start of this game. And I think Cousins found it a lot pre-snap, preyed on it, and you had this just absolutely unbelievable Justin Jefferson start, over 130 yards in the first half. 17 consecutive completions for Cousins, which breaks a team record for consecutive completions, let alone to start a game. 18th pass was his first incompletion. That's unreal. And they weren't dinks and dunks. I like a lot of them were dinks and dunks, but that was like part of it. I'll get into it. Go up 21-3. And then you just kind of let the Bears crawl back in, right? They get this crazy Darnell Mooney circus catch that sets up a touchdown. The run game was working and it sets up a touchdown. Before you knew it, the Bears were up 22-21 and the Vikings had the ball with, they started with like 10 minutes left in the fourth quarter, and they actually scored on the 2-minute warning. They took 8 minutes off the clock with a 17-play drive that was beautiful. That Kirk Cousins orchestrated a lot of clutch conversions on that. As good as all the stuff in the first half was, that drive might have been the best moment for him. So this was a game you won because of Kirk Cousins, and it's kind of what we've all been asking for, right? So we loved some notes, but we love it. We take this all day, right? But I want to focus. We'll get a little bit more into the defense and kind of what happened, but I want to focus first on that beginning of the game because the Vikings did something really interesting. I'm obsessed with this. The Vikings came out tempo. I won't call it no huddle or hurry up. I'll call it tempo, but they weren't huddling like normal. They had what appeared to be 2 plays, which is a normal thing. You have canned plays. This is a McVay. Everybody does this, where you do, it used to be kill with the Kubiak offense. Now it's can, same deal, where you come out with a play and then you have like a backup play if the look is showing you whatever, and then you can say can, and you can change from whatever play was called to the second one, and that's up to Kirk Cousins. It might be more granular than that too. Sometimes you also have the ability to dial in the protection or to change a particular route, or it depends on the complexity and how much the quarterback feels like he can handle at the line of scrimmage and how much you trust him and stuff. But it seemed like Kirk Cousins had like carte blanche and was able to do like everything. Some of that is nonsense. Something you go, bingo, bingo, 59, and it means nothing, and everybody knows it means nothing except the defense. And sometimes it's nonsense. But I do think it was a lot of canning at the line of scrimmage, dialing things up at the line of scrimmage. I wouldn't call it audibles, because to me, an audible is something that, you kind of always have in your back pocket that it's a little bit more of an off-script change, where with this, it's like you kind of have plan A and plan B depending on what the defense does, and you have to pick it right. But that's not an important distinction. The point is, get up to the line of scrimmage, do a lot of really cool stuff, basically solve the Bears. And because of that, Kirk Cousins didn't have to make like any hard throws all game. And that's credit to him. That's not me saying it was easy for him. He made it easy on himself. And that's what you want. That's you take that all day. You wouldn't want him to make it hard on himself and make harder throws, right? That's why I'm really happy with this open to this Kirk Cousins game. And you made it 21-3. And while you did let the Bears back in, keep in mind a lot of what's going to define this game. 8 possessions on either side of the ball. Vikings score on their first 3, and the Bears get 3 points on their first 3, 1 field goal. That defines the rest of the game. It meant that in the last 5 possessions, the Vikings needed to get 1 more score and 2 more stops. And I think that is exactly what they got. So they just barely did enough for the rest of the game, but it made it so that they didn't have to do very much for the rest of the game to still get that win. They could afford to play kind of bad. Now, we got to talk about how bad they played after that open, right? And we'll get into the defense and all that stuff. But for me, what defines this game is take your pick between opening the game, essentially solving the Bears and going up huge right away and having that define the game for the rest of the day, or after it all falls apart, Kirk Cousins coming out and orchestrating a really nice, really long, very controlled drive to take the go-ahead, go up 22-29, and then on the 2-minute drill, you can also decide that this one was defined by Cameron Dantzler stripping Amir Smith-Marset, which was incredible. Just took the ball away. Absolutely great. And then the quote afterward in the locker room about how, yeah, we had some intel. He's kind of loose with the ball sometimes, which that's unnecessary. I can't believe he said that. That's just kick the man while he's down. I liked Amir Smith-Marset when he was here. I don't like it. I don't know. I feel bad, but that's real good stuff. I'm going to really roast the defense in a bit, but first, let's talk about PrizePicks. PrizePicks is daily fantasy made easy. I don't really like daily fantasy as a way to like predict games and outcomes and stuff, because you have to like build a whole team and do the salary cap thing. I'm not like interested in that. I've got a few takes that I'm like, I think blah 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 will have a good game, and I kind of just want to play that. That's what PrizePicks is for. You can pick 2 to 5 of your favorite takes for the week, and whether they get more or less than their PrizePicks projection, that's it. You can win up to 10 times your money. And if you go right now, you can use promo code LOCKEDON. It's prizepicks.com, or there's an app at the App Store or Google Play. Promo code LOCKEDON. You get 100% instant deposit match up to $100 with promo code LOCKEDON. That's 100% match. So if you put in $100, you get 100 extra bucks on top of that if you use promo code LOCKEDON at prizepicks.com or on the PrizePicks app. So this was obviously a huge Justin Jefferson day. And I talked a lot about what Kirk Cousins kind of did a lot of stuff at the line of scrimmage. But what was that stuff? I'll have to look at the actual tape to know for sure. But to the live eye, what I think I noticed was that they played a lot of single high. And Kirk Cousins said this after the game too, so I feel pretty confident that I got that right. But they were playing a lot of single high at the beginning. Apparently the Bears just live like this, which is insane to me. So single high safety means you've got 1 safety high and 1 safety in the box. That extra safety in the box helps with the runs. So they're kind of playing a run-first defense. And that left a lot of cornerbacks on islands with Justin Jefferson. Now, Jalen Johnson did not play, and that is the only cornerback who's like worth a damn on the Bears right now. They've got Kindle Vildor, who's like very just a guy. They have Kyler Gordon, who's kind of a disaster. I thought he had a decent game today, but apparently, according to Lauren Cox, Locked On Bears, he's been a mess. And then Jalen Jones, undrafted rookie. And these guys are manning up like one-on-one with Justin Jefferson, and the Vikings were able to take away the safety help by using deep crossers, and the Bears weren't doing the sellout, have a safety on the other side, be able to like help that, to like nail down on an over from the other side. Like the thing the Lions did, the things the Eagles did that shut down Justin Jefferson, the Bears didn't come out doing that. And that's pretty insane to me. That's a big mistake. And I think Kirk Cousins saw that. You can kind of tell pre-snap, because the other thing is the Bears weren't disguising any of their coverages. So Cousins saw that, dialed up plays that went, okay, we'll just give Justin Jefferson a one-on-one, or they started playing really scared and then they started backing off 10 yards. Although some of that was, I think, just coverage mistakes, not like on purpose stuff, not unlike what we see from the Vikings, where it looks like they're playing really soft, but really they just like screwed up. But the Vikings Cousins found that, and got the ball to Justin Jefferson either in the flat or in a one-on-one situation, and they just diced him. Like, they just kept taking what the defense gave him, and that's all you need to do. So it was a whole bunch of easy throws. It was a whole bunch of pitch and catch. It was a whole bunch of, we don't really have to try, and we're gonna get the ball down and score a touchdown on you without like exerting a ton of effort or really having to like make a play or really having to throw a contested ball or do anything perfect. There was one throw that was like a perfect rainbow, like drop in the bucket to Justin Jefferson, who just had a step. It was pretty similar to the one over Marshawn Lattimore from the London game. That was like a really high difficulty throw. That was really awesome. Like, it was in there if he had to, but the fact that it was easy is a credit to Kirk Cousins, again, because he set that up for himself. I also want to shout out the run game. Dalvin Cook, 2 touchdowns, over 100 yards. Incredible Dalvin Cook game. A lot of, the reads were really good. It'll be really exciting to kind of show. I think it was a bit of a clinic game in the run game too, especially on duo. And you got a lot of a really good shift and explosion from Dalvin Cook. Good plays from Madison as well. On the offensive line, I gotta look. It felt like there might have been a little bit of pressure in like the low bad part of the game, but I kept noticing Christian Darrisaw swallowing dudes, like just being on top of guys. And I think Darrisaw might have had like a scary day, like a kill you kind of day. O-line is the hardest thing for me to watch live. So my Monday morning after O-line takes are always going to be the ones that I have to go back and correct the most. So grain of salt. But I think Darrisaw had an unbelievable game. But again, it's only like corner of my eye. I just kept seeing him pancaked on top of guys. It's like that. Well, that's got to be good, right? The offense won this game, and the defense almost lost it. That's the way I see it. And a really bad special teams day as well, which I thought it would be a little bit of a reach, and I kind of wish I had gone by. I almost tweeted out something about how the Vikings had a whole bunch of different guys playing on special teams in this one because of various injuries and stuff. But they had Ty Chandler in for the first time, Dan Chisena in for the first time. They had a bunch of Miles Dorn in for the first time of the season. So they had a bunch of people on special teams who haven't been a part of the special teams that has been playing so well. The special teams did so great in London. Well, this is kind of a different group of people. And I was like, that might be a problem. And it turned out to like totally be a problem, but I can't actually take my victory lap because I didn't put that take out there in time. Rats. But the biggest problem is the defense. The defense is in a bad way. And I thought they started out the first half really nicely until that Darnell Mooney deep circus catch, which is a fantastic play, beat Shannon Sullivan, just found a one-on-one with Shannon Sullivan, which the Bears wanted all day. They wanted Shannon Sullivan. He was absolutely a marked man in that game, for better or worse for them. And for the better, I think. That was the sort of start of the cascade. And then you just got a lot of Fields running around and scrambling. Okay, so what's wrong? Now we got to talk about what's wrong with the defense again. You saw a little more out of Danielle Hunter in this one. I thought he was a lot more involved. But we'll get into it. I think what Ed Donatel did in this game is really dumb. A couple of situational times. I think it's just really poor play selection by Ed Donatel. And I'm hoping that when I open up the tape, I see that they were just kind of put in the wrong situation and not that they made more mistakes than they made against the Saints. Because again, 8 possessions, 22 points. The Bears scored on 5 of their 8 possessions. The Vikings got 3 stops, 2 in the first half during that spring out to a big lead, and then the one at the end, which they were driving, and it was just a good play by Cameron Dantzler. It's a really bad defensive day. 22 points undersells it because there were only 8 possessions. Really, really bad. So we'll talk about that, and I'll get into what I think happened, and then we'll kind of come back and circle back on it later in the week. But first, let me talk to you about the best tasting protein bar on the planet. It's Built Bar. Built Bar Puffs are awesome. They're the marshmallowy kind. Of course, Built Bar has all of its classics that we've been talking about on this show for years now. But they're puffs, they're marshmallowy, fluffy kind. They like aerate it, and it's made with collagen protein. So it's not like a sugary, like a Three Musketeers or something like that. It's like a whipped, aerated collagen protein that your body's better at absorbing, has all kinds of interesting health benefits. And now, cookie dough chunk puffs is available. You got to get in on this while it's there. It's light and chewy and real chunks of cookie dough, and of course, covered in 100% real chocolate. 160 calories per bar. That's it. 15 grams of protein in one of those bad boys. So go to built.com, use promo code LOCKEDON15, LOCKEDON15. Different promo code than before, so pay attention. LOCKEDON15, you can get 15% off of your order. Use promo code LOCKEDON15 at built.com. Thank you so much for making Locked On Vikings your first listen of the day. If you want more in-depth stuff than what I can get into on this show, film review and stuff, because this is a podcast, this is an audio medium. Visual aids are great for YouTube, but I can only do so much, but I can do a lot more on Patreon. So go find patreon.com/LukeBraunNFL. You can also find the history documentary I did over the offseason if you're interested in the history of the Minnesota Vikings, 7-episode, basically a TV series. You can find all of that over there. Let's talk about the defense. So, man, it's not a great day. And I'm going to go pretty hard on the defense, I think, this week because, and specifically the defensive like architecture, the structure, the scheme, because I was wrong in the offseason, and I think it's because I didn't want to believe it. But the switch to a 3-4 just does not fit some of these people, like Danielle Hunter, and the too high umbrella thing, or a broadcast have called it shell coverage, which is the wrong word. I maintain. Do not say the word shell coverage, but that might be what you know it as because of what the announcers have said in previous games. Is keeping Harrison Smith out of the box, keeping him away from making plays. And he's lining up 40 yards down the field all the time, and he's like a great box player, and he gets into the box like twice a game, and he makes a play in those moments, but it's not variable enough. It's taking players away. It's putting Danielle Hunter in coverage on 3rd and 10. That is just kind of unacceptable. Feels a little bit like Donatel came in, and I get it to some degree. Look, this is what you're trained in, right? You are a 3-4 Vic Fangio disciple. You're not just going to come in and run a Zimmer scheme. You don't know a Zimmer scheme, right? How do you coach a thing you're not even well-versed in, right? You're not going to do that. So I'm not asking for that. I don't think that's realistic. But there are tools within the Fangio scheme that would better take advantage of the players they have right now. And it feels a little bit like Donatel wants Von Miller and he's got Danielle Hunter. And those are different players with different skill sets. He wants, Bradley Chubb and he's got Danielle Hunter. What really sent me over the edge, it was a 3rd and 10 in the middle of the game. It was actually 2nd and 16. Zadarius Smith made an absolutely incredible TFL, totally read the heck out of the play, almost took a toss to the running back, tackled him for a 6-yard loss, 2nd and 16. Justin Fields scrambles to get that 6 back, setting up a 3rd and 10. On that 3rd and 10, DJ Wanham and Danielle Hunter mug the A-gaps, very Zimmer style. You probably know what that means, right? They line up on the A-gaps, they're feigning pressure. And then they both back off into pressure. So it's a pressure simulation. The point of that is to try to screw with their protections. You want to basically freeze the center, and then you get a bunch of one-on-ones on the outside, right? Because the center's not going to help anybody. That is a colossally dumb thing to do in this situation because the Bears center, Sam Mustipher, is arguably the worst center in the league. And you had the potential, if you call a different pressure there, same look, but just a different pressure where Neil Hunter rushes and somebody else comes back into coverage. You could have had Danielle Hunter one-on-one with Sam Mustipher. It's like the best matchup you could hope for. And you didn't do it. And you just backed him off into coverage. And then Hunter didn't drop deep enough because he's not a coverage linebacker. And it ended up being a completion over the middle for a comfortable conversion. That just doesn't make sense to me. I get deception, and I get, if you're going to run this scheme, Danielle Hunter will have to back off into coverage sometimes. But you have to remember that Danielle Hunter backing off into coverage is a reprieve for the offensive line. If you are a guard or a tackle or a center, and you see 99 come across from you, and you're ready to go up against him, and then he backs off and you don't have to, you breathe a sigh of relief. And anytime your opponent is exhaling, you're doing something wrong, and it better be worth it. The deception of that, okay, they're going to look at where Danielle Hunter is. That's great, but he's not Anthony Barr, and it feels like they're using him like Anthony Barr a little bit. That's just wrong. He should be rushing. He should back off into coverage 2 or 3 times a game, maybe, not on a crucial 3rd and 10. Do that when you want to dial up a blitz, but not on 3rd and 10. Danielle Hunter should be rushing the passer, especially if you're going to have him go in that 2-point stance. One of the advantages of that is being able to have Danielle Hunter rush from the inside and get matchups with guards and centers. They'll be way overmatched against him. But they're not doing that. And I think just overall, they are not putting these players in positions that let them use their full skill sets. And there are tools within this defensive scheme that can allow you to do that. And it feels like Donatel is running the very vanilla, the version of this defense when you have a bunch of rookies and nobody knows what to do. And yeah, kind of nobody knows what to do. They're all new to it and they're all making a bunch of mistakes. And don't take this rant at all as me absolving players for execution mistakes, because that is also a problem and something we got to get into when I've got a better sense for who messed up what. But right now, it's broken. And I knew it would be broken, right? If you listen to this show leading up, I said, it's going to be growing pains. I think that was the word I used. You got to have a little patience, right? And it'll all come along once they have a better sense. And once they're better at zone pass-offs and once they're kind of better at executing, they'll be able to pull out some of the more exotic stuff. Because right now they're running a very, very vanilla version with not a lot of disguises in it, not a lot of deception or trickery in it. And they're just kind of straight up playing zone. And that's really easy to pick apart. Like any college quarterback can pick that apart. But that's like all they can run because they can't execute anything else. That will eventually change as they get more comfortable. And I don't think it's changing by the end of this year. But next year, I would expect that to be a leap. Like I'm going to project the Vikings defense to leap forward from wherever it is at the end here. But for now, you got to also remember you got games to play. This isn't the preseason anymore. These games count, and 3rd and 10s count. And backing Danielle Hunter off into coverage, you're just outthinking yourself. And I do think that that's something with coordinators that, especially coordinators that don't have a ton of actual play calling experience. Donatel hasn't been a coordinator since 2008, so it's been a while calling plays and all that stuff. And sometimes you get, like, he's been in Fangio's shadow for like most of his career, right? And Fangio's been the one calling plays. And I think when you're in that, you feel a little bit like you have to do everything. You've got to scheme everything, right? We've got to get an open, unblocked man, and we've got to cover it all perfectly. And my thing has to just like work entirely, and my scheme has to do all the work. And then eventually you get to the point where, okay, my job as a schemer is to get a one-on-one for the good player. And I don't feel like Ed Donatel was trying to do that. I feel like Ed Donatel was trying to get unblocked rushers and take away every route with the scheme so nobody on the team had to be good. You have Danielle Hunter, man. And I thought Danielle Hunter played pretty well when he had actual opportunities to play. So it's not like this disappearing act Danielle Hunter a lot of people are really worried about. No, Danielle Hunter was good in this game. Don't worry about it. It's just he's got Danielle Hunter and he's treating him like he's a 4th-round rookie. Speaking of 4th-round picks, though, I will shout out. Thought DJ Wano had a pretty good game. But I think the real hero on defense, and we'll end with this positive note, right? The real hero of the day was Cam Dantzler. How many plays, right? The 2-point conversion that he exploded that kept the Vikings from being down 3 points. The strip at the end, a couple of great moments in coverage as well. I thought Cam Dantzler had a fantastic game. we'll see a lot of times with Dantzler, the tape reveals times where he played something too far off and he let up a completion that you couldn't really see on TV and stuff. So I'm not going to say like pristine or anything like that, but whatever mistakes he did make, he more than made up for them by, playmaking and icing the game at the end. So great stuff from him. But that defense is still broken. And you got the Miami Dolphins with Tyreek Hill and Jalen Waddle coming, or you're going to their place. It's an interesting game coming up. We'll get more into it, but I'm already starting to think about like, well, they love to go deep. And I guess this defense, if nothing else, is built to like discourage you from doing that. So what do you got, underneath Dolphins? And I have no idea. We have no idea who's going to play quarterback too, because there's a lot of concussion issues and injuries over there. We'll get into all of that later in the week. There's still a lot to break down about this one. But tomorrow is going to be Twitter Tuesday. Send in your questions. You can send them to me at Luke Braun NFL or at Locked On Vikings. You can send them to lockedonvikingspodcast@gmail.com. If you'd rather send an email, there's a Google form in the show notes, or leave a YouTube comment if you prefer. I will see you all tomorrow for Twitter Tuesday, and then we'll break down some more film on Wednesday. Hope to see you on Patreon for more in-depth film breakdown stuff. And as always, Skol.